Welcome to episode 139, Spotlight, Supply Chain Risk Management Plan, where we explore how organizations design structured programs to manage the security and reliability of their suppliers before purchases ever occur. The SR-2 control underscores that risk management begins with planning, not reaction. A documented plan defines how suppliers are selected, monitored, and held accountable throughout their life cycle. It translates abstract supply chain principles into practical governance: who owns which decisions, what information must be collected, and how exceptions are handled. When built thoughtfully, the plan becomes the backbone of a trustworthy supply ecosystem, aligning procurement, security, and operations around a shared understanding of risk. Building from that foundation, the plan starts by establishing its purpose, scope, roles, and authorities. The purpose explains why the plan exists: to identify, evaluate, and manage risks arising from suppliers and third-party dependencies. Scope defines which systems, products, or service types fall under its governance. Roles specify the individuals or teams responsible for implementation, assessment, and approval. Authorities clarify who can accept, escalate, or terminate supplier relationships based on risk posture. For example, procurement might manage onboarding logistics, while the security office maintains risk scoring. These definitions prevent overlap, clarify accountability, and ensure decisions rest with those empowered to manage consequences. From there, supplier tiering criteria and thresholds organize oversight proportionate to importance and exposure. Tiering assigns each supplier to a risk level based on the criticality of the service, data sensitivity, and potential impact of compromise. High-tier suppliers, such as cloud hosting or identity providers, receive frequent, detailed reviews, while low-tier vendors undergo lighter checks. Thresholds define what qualifies each tier and the minimum controls required. For instance, suppliers processing personal or regulated data may automatically classify as high risk. Tiering helps prioritize limited resources, focusing assurance activities where the consequences of failure are greatest. It brings structure to what could otherwise be an overwhelming web of relationships. Building on prioritization, the plan sets security requirements by service category. Different supplier types, software developers, data processors, logistics providers, face distinct risk profiles. Each category should have baseline security expectations tailored to its role. For example, software vendors may be required to follow a secure development lifecycle and provide software bills of materials, while hosting providers must maintain physical security and resilience certifications. Defining these category-based requirements ensures consistency across similar suppliers and fairness in enforcement. It also allows contracts to embed pre-approved clauses, aligning legal obligations with security policy from the start. From there, assessment cadence and evidence expectations ensure continuous visibility into supplier performance. The plan defines how often suppliers will be assessed and what evidence they must produce, such as audit reports, penetration test results, or incident logs. High-risk suppliers might undergo annual reassessment, while others align with multi-year cycles. Evidence requirements ensure that verification is based on current, authentic data rather than outdated claims. For instance, the plan might require ISO certification renewals within 12 months or quarterly vulnerability scan submissions. Cadence and evidence together transform periodic oversight into a predictable, repeatable process that maintains ongoing assurance. Building upon visibility, the plan must also define incident reporting, escalation, and communication flows. Suppliers need clear expectations about what qualifies as an incident, how quickly it must be reported, and through which channels. Internally, escalation procedures outline who within the organization responds, evaluates, and communicates onward. For example, a supplier discovering unauthorized access to shared data might be required to report within 24 hours using a defined format. The plan also designates communication lines to regulatory bodies, customers, and other stakeholders as needed. Structured response expectations prevent confusion and ensure that time-sensitive information reaches the right hands fast. From there, sub-processor transparency and approval processes address the hidden layers beneath primary suppliers. Many vendors rely on their own downstream partners, data centers, logistics handlers, or software components to deliver service. The plan should require disclosure of these sub-processors and obtain customer approval before additions or changes occur. For example, a cloud service might be allowed to use certain certified facilities but must notify the organization before onboarding a new storage provider. Transparency prevents unseen dependencies from undermining trust. Approval processes ensure that inherited risk remains visible and controllable throughout the supplier hierarchy. Building on layered transparency, the plan must codify authenticity, provenance, and software bill of materials policies. Authenticity confirms that supplied components are genuine. Provenance tracks where they originated, and software bills of materials detail their composition. Together, they prevent counterfeit or tampered parts from entering production. For instance, the plan might require cryptographic verification of hardware components and submission of updated SBMs for every software release. These requirements extend accountability deep into manufacturing and development chains, ensuring traceability from source to deployment. By embedding authenticity and provenance in policy, the organization guards against hidden vulnerabilities. From there, exit plans, escrow arrangements, and data portability provisions prepare for eventual supplier transition or termination. Every supplier relationship will end at some point, and unplanned exits can disrupt operations if not anticipated. The plan should define how data will be retrieved, how continuity will be maintained, and how proprietary dependencies will be resolved. For example, a software vendor might maintain escrowed source code to allow customer access in case of business failure. Data portability ensures that critical information can be transferred safely to alternate providers without lock-in or loss. Planning exits in advance keeps transitions orderly, not chaotic. Building on readiness, monitoring signals and trigger conditions turn the plan from static documentation into a living feedback system. Signals may include changes in supplier ownership, repeated audit failures, public security incidents, or declining performance indicators. Trigger conditions specify when additional reviews, reassessments, or escalations are required. For example, acquisition by an unvetted parent company might trigger an immediate reassessment. By defining these signals, the organization ensures that supplier risk is managed continuously, not just on a calendar. Monitoring transforms the plan into an early warning mechanism, catching deterioration before it becomes crisis. From there, exceptions, waivers, and compensations must be documented transparently. Sometimes business need demands deviation from standard requirements, but those exceptions must never disappear into silence. Each waiver should identify its justification, risk owner, duration, and compensating controls. For example, a supplier lacking formal certification might be approved temporarily under enhanced monitoring. Documenting these deviations ensures that risk decisions remain intentional and visible. Time-bound exceptions encourage follow-through and prevent gradual erosion of control standards over time. Discipline in exceptions is what separates managed flexibility from unmanaged exposure. Building further, governance forums and decision checkpoints create rhythm and accountability in plan execution. Regular meetings between procurement, security, and business leaders allow for review of supplier performance, emerging risks, and pending renewals. Decision checkpoints might include new supplier approvals, reauthorization after incidents, or escalation of overdue remediations. For example, a quarterly governance committee might review metrics and approve high-risk supplier renewals based on evidence of progress. These structured forums institutionalize collaboration, ensuring that supply chain risk management remains integrated across the organization rather than siloed in one department. From there, metrics such as supplier risk score movement, renewal timeliness, and closure of corrective actions help quantify plan performance. Risk score movement shows whether suppliers are improving or declining in security posture. Renewal timeliness tracks discipline in reassessments. And closure rates reveal whether corrective actions are actually resolved. For instance, tracking how many suppliers move from high to moderate risk over a year demonstrates program effectiveness. Metrics give leadership a clear view of progress and areas needing attention. They transform the SCRM plan from a compliance document into a measurable management system. In closing, a living and enforceable supply chain risk management plan provides the structure that sustains supplier trust and accountability. The SR-2 control reminds us that secure procurement begins with policy, clarity, and consistency. When roles, assessments, transparency, and monitoring all operate from the same playbook, supply chain assurance becomes repeatable rather than improvised. A well-governed plan keeps risk decisions timely, evidence verifiable, and partnerships resilient. By treating the plan as a living system, reviewed, measured, and improved, organizations ensure that every supplier relationship supports security, reliability, and mission success. Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.